The Bright Future Scholarship Fund has given $4.2 billion to 650,000 students in Florida, but recent modifications might change those numbers. Out of high school, Odalis Cruz was told she'd earned funding from the Bright Future Scholarship Fund. Her grades and test scores in high school qualified her as a Florida Medallion Scholar, which was said to pay 100% of her tuition to a Florida university.
Well, I had a sister who she went to university before me, so she went to a local college actually, and her tuition wasn't paid in full by Bright Futures. So I knew that my tuition would not be covered because I was going to university, which has the tuition credit is more expensive.
Even knowing how the system worked, Cruz was still a bit disappointed and had to get a job with ABC Research Laboratories to cover her expenses.
The first year I was here, my Bright Futures covered about 75% of my tuition. By second year, it had dropped already down to 50%, and then after that, it covered even less than half of my tuition.
Bill Hancock, the Gainesville district manager for the Florida Lottery, says he's seen ticket sales going up.
Sales with the Florida Lottery has had a wonderful trend, especially over the last 11 years, where we've seen increases, and we've put over $1 billion each year into the Educational Enhancement Trust Fund, which part of that money funds Bright Futures.
28% of Florida Lottery ticket sales go to education. That's where the Bright Futures funding comes from. But if they're seeing an upward trend in ticket sales, why are Bright Futures scholars having to pay more out of pocket? Looking at the history of Bright Futures, we can see the disbursement amounts decreasing 18% faster than the number of students receiving the scholarship. This is because the budget isn't enough to keep up with the demands of the scholars. Donna Kolb at the UF Office of Financial Affairs has seen the number of students receiving the scholarship decrease.
And I was thinking, well, it's increased, incrementally, so there have been medallion kids that have been dropping off over the years.
Even though current students are not receiving near the full amount they expected, a bill in the Florida Senate has been introduced proposing they lower the Florida Medallion Award qualifications.
If they lowered the requirements even more, then more people would be qualifying, and more qualifying students means less money per student.
The bill was introduced March 4th, but we'll have to wait till the session ends May 2nd to see if it passed. Denise Toledo, WUFT News. The number of Americans smoking decreases daily. Only 18% of Americans still smoke cigarettes, and 69% of those are trying to quit every day. Americans have used nicotine patches, gums, and lozenges to quit. And in recent years, we have seen the emergence of another device people have used to stop smoking conventional cigarettes.
So I went from a pack and a half a day to half a pack a day, and I smoke this all the time now.
Vance picked up electronic cigarettes after a friend of his let him try it, and it seemed to work well for him. E-cigarettes generally have the reputation for being better than conventional cigarettes.
It's propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, flavor, and nicotine. Those are the 4 ingredients in it, and you can actually get the liquids without nicotine.
But studies have shown these particular ingredients to cause problems in the lungs. The FDA wants to be able to start regulating e-cigarettes, but until then, preliminary studies have been done. These studies have found certain brands to be inconsistent, as well as labeling cartridges as non-nicotine, when small amounts of nicotine were still found to be in them. So why do so many Americans think e-cigarettes are so clean? Websites advertise them to be a clean, better way to transition from cigarettes, none of which is regulated. Even just scrolling down some of the pages warns users that the claims may be misleading. Many people have used them successfully, though, and in public places.
Anytime I'm at work, I constantly have this thing. I have to go behind the counter because I work in retail, so I'll go behind the shelves and hit it a couple times and be done.
E-cigarette users tend to use them wherever because they're breathing out vapor rather than smoke. But a study done in February 2010 shows that the nicotine in the vapor, when mixed with nitrous acid, commonly found in indoor air, still creates carcinogens that can affect those around vapors. Commissioner Hutchinson has proposed a county ordinance on e-cigarettes for that same reason.
I vaped right up here at this dais behind me, and people all the way at the end could say, I smell the mango flavor, because it was mango flavored vapor juice. Within seconds, they said, oh yeah, I can smell the mango. Well, if they can smell it, that means they're breathing something in.
Commissioner Hutchinson wanted to give e-cigarettes a try before making the decision on their use in the county and felt they should be regulated like regular cigarettes.
No sale to minors. You have to display them behind the counter, not out in the middle of the store like they are in many Minute Marts now. And then the third was any place that has a no smoking ban, either by federal, state, or local ordinance, that would also mean no vaping.
Commissioner Hutchinson's proposal will go into full effect here in Gainesville this summer, but until the FDA gets approval to start regulating companies and their sales tactics, Americans elsewhere are at the mercy of vapors. Denise Toledo, WUFT News. The Clean Water Act was put into place to keep our environment as well as our drinking water clean, but there are big gaps in the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act says dumping must be restricted to non-navigable waters. This means you can only dump pollutants in waterways too small for a boat to pass through. In 2001 and 2006, two big Supreme Court cases narrowed what navigable waters entails, creating loopholes for big agricultural companies to dump waste into Florida's waterways.
Big agriculture and big sugar in South Florida, and the American Farm Bureau is like the biggest polluter. It's just cheaper for them and easier to continue dumping in the streams with like whatever pollution that they acquire. And so they keep pressuring the president to keep the loopholes in place.
The biggest gaps in the Clean Water Act are non-point sources. Point sources, like pipes, channels, or containers that discharge pollutants into the water, are regulated, but agriculture tends to fall under non-point source. Clean Water Act doesn't even cover groundwater. So if an agricultural company were to spray waste over their land and it seeped into navigable rivers as runoff, that wouldn't be regulated.
A lot of stormwater runoff, a lot of activities that are more widespread on the landscape don't get regulated or dealt with very effectively at all.
This has left 80% of Florida's waterways recently tested polluted. And where does our drinking water come from?
The polluted water.
I tried contacting a member of the Florida Farm Bureau, but he was unable to return my phone calls. Ron St. John was voted Florida Farmer of the Year for keeping nutrients out of the water. But not all farmers are as responsible, which is why the EPA proposed a ruling last year in hopes of closing those loopholes. Environment Florida is waiting to hear back from the White House any day now. But even after closing the loopholes, there still may be large gaps in the Clean Water Act. Denise Toledo, WUFT News.